the more you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
You need to know those fundamentals, and then you can apply those fundamentals in whatever technology you are using. How do you build those scalable systems, and how do you still keep on releasing things fast? You might have the best product in the world, but without distribution it fails. In education, what has worked well in India is distribution using YouTube as a channel.
Focused on the, what really adds value to the user. Hello everyone, welcome to the new podcast of SCALERPOD. Today we have Gaurav with us. Gaurav has been CTO at Doubtnut. Doubtnut, which was India's most downloaded education app and one of the biggest in the world as well at one point in time. Currently, Gaurav is building a company called Sherlocks.ai, which is the investigator when your site goes down. Imagine having access to thousands of parallel investigators to quickly find out what went wrong and fix that. Before that, Gaurav did his undergraduation and graduation from IIT Bombay. Welcome to SCALERPOD, Gaurav.
Thanks,
Great to
Abhishek.
have you here.
Thank you so much. My honor.
So I think you have had an interesting journey, right? Of course, like you decided, and it's a little, I think, uncommon that right after graduation you jumped into entrepreneurship. I think you didn't take up job. Generally, the path even for most of us have been you graduate, you work for a few years, you like figure things out, and then you try to build. And then, of course, I'm sure that the journey at Doubtnut would have given you exposure to a lot of interesting experiences.
Absolutely.
And then from then now building a cutting edge AI company. Let's start with your early journey, right? And I think one thing that is always very fascinating for me, that when we look back at our journey when we were a young engineer, right? I often recollect a lot of moments where, that how stupid I was 10 years back. And I see that as a sign of growth, right? That
Yeah.
we keep reflecting back and see that what were the things that we didn't know well enough, right? So to begin with, if I ask you that, if you look back at Gaurav 10 years back, 2015, let's say, right? And I think a lot of our audiences would relate, engineers, passionate engineers who are building interesting stuff. But 10 years back, what were the things that you reflect as that were dumb? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'll start with a very fundamental belief that I've had over years. That the more you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
This is I realized it quite late in my career. So during college, I started I'm a civil engineer by degree, and I started my tech journey during college itself. And what I used to do back then was get fascinated by every new technology and start building like hello worlds in those technologies. And then I would call them as I know these things. I mean,
Right.
if you would have seen my resume, which I used to apply for jobs in the final year,
Right.
there were like at least 50 things listed there.
Right.
Even
Right.
today, I won't call myself. Even today, if I had to build a resume, I won't list them in my resume.
Right.
So that was like one of those stupid things that I used to do. That touching one technology, I know it, and I wanted to like touch all the technologies or all the things frameworks that existed.
Right.
Over
But that's an interesting point that you touched upon, that in technology there is breadth and there's depth.
right.
And I see value in both, right? How do you, like in your own journey, how do you prioritize between depth versus breadth?
So I think there are fundamental things that you have to know. For example, how do databases work? How do databases store data and index data? This is just one example, but you need to know those fundamentals, and then you can apply those fundamentals in whatever technology you are using. You don't need to know all the databases. You don't need to like run a hello world program in every language or every framework. You just need to know what is that framework about.
Right.
I typically like now I look at like FAQs of a particular thing or technology or framework
Right.
to see how it differs from anything else. But
Right.
All you need to know is fundamental knowledge and what are the choices available, what are the trade-offs of various things.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I've come to believe over time.
So makes sense. Makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about your time at Doubtnut. Of course, I think Doubtnut, if I remember correctly, at its peak during the pandemic, I think it had like what 50 million installs,
Yeah.
and that could be more than population of many countries in the world.
Absolutely.
So what like tell us a little bit about what were the some of the most insightful and counterintuitive learnings that you had as heading the technology for a company which is managing 50 million users, active users at a time. Uh, what were those experiences?
So first of all, I'm grateful for my journey at Doubtnut. Experiencing that scale and that fulfillment of building something that students who come from various places they don't have resources to ask a question, or
Right.
they might feel scared asking questions. We were able to provide them that tool, that product, that buddy who could answer those questions. So yeah, it was an incredible journey. Came at just about the right time, when COVID hit. Unfortunately,
Right.
when COVID hit,
Right.
and students were all forced to study on their own at their home.
Right.
And we saw unprecedented growth at that point. That is where, like, month on month, we were just doubling in our user base. We
Right.
had like 2.5 million users, active daily active users, and 25 million monthly active
Wow.
users at some point. So engineering wise, it was incredible challenge. Like, how do you build those scalable systems, and how do you still keep on releasing things fast? Like, we had 3 weekly releases on our Android app, which is something that, like, even a lot of times, even before the last update got approved by the Play
Right.
Store, we were already releasing a new version. That
Right.
also happened quite often.
Right.
Like, doing all of that was like incredibly difficult. Some of the interesting things that we saw at Doubtnut were on Sunday mornings, 9 a.m., which is the time you won't expect any traffic. We used to get our peak traffic.
Oh, very interesting. So Sunday, 9 a.m.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m.
Okay, interesting.
And it was a clear graph that 9 a.m. suddenly the traffic increases,
Okay.
and then it goes at the same level. It remains at the same level for 3 hours until 12, and then it would suddenly drop.
Oh, interesting.
The reason, and we figured it out over time, was students used to have those weekly tests at their coaching or wherever, and then
Right.
you would see pictures taken from laptop screens more compared to like taken from their notebooks or
Got
textbooks.
it. Got it.
So that was
So it was
pretty.
in a way, like while it was a doubt resolution app, but on the Sunday 9 to 12, in a way, it was being used to rather cheat in the
Yeah, unfortunately.
weekly tests.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, but like without judgment, it's user behavior. User
Yeah.
behavior is what it is.
Yeah.
What was the like this is one this would have been a counterintuitive thing for most, right? That
Absolutely.
doubt resolution app is being used max during the test.
Yeah.
And like similar to this, like while Doubtnut was a huge success story in terms of user engagement and the user growth, etc. In India, I think a lot of edtechs focused on K-12. They failed to monetize, right? Uh, Now, let's say if you come across a founder who is, because in India, despite whatever have played out so far, I do continue to believe that India is a country of youth, right? And to really actualize the value of our population, education is the core.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty bullish on the fact that very high quality education companies in K-12 and across all the segments will be created. But if I ask you that, what would be some of the insights that you would want to pass on to the founders who want to build in the education space, let's say K-12 education space, to keep it very relevant to your experience, what would be those advice or insights that you would want to share?
So one, focus on distribution significantly, because you might have the best product in the world, but without distribution it
Right.
fails, and
Right.
applies to all B2C, B2B, every sort of product.
Right.
In education, what has worked well in India is distribution using YouTube as a channel, YouTube as a medium. So focus on that
Right.
quite a lot. You
Right.
need to build a brand to be able to sell anything in India,
Right.
especially to students, because
I would argue that's global as well. Now, the way of brand building might be different, but even if you look at Duolingo, for example, of course,
Right.
they have done a fantastic job at building a strong brand.
Right.
While I think in the more globalized product case, the distribution is often product-led growth
Right.
rather than content-led growth. But in India, I think so far content-led growth has worked better than just product-led growth.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, in India, at least back then, we didn't see a behavior of customers making a purchase on their own.
Right.
You had to make a call to make the purchase,
Right.
unless if you had a brand which was so strong,
Right.
which could get users to purchase on their own.
Right.
So brand building is super important
Right.
in my opinion.
Right. No, makes sense. And like if we double click on the user behaviors and the product, like the experiments that worked really well during your time at Doubtnut versus those which logically made sense, but when it was put in front of the users, it didn't work at all. Could you share some of those as well?
Yeah. So one of the other points for the previous question also blends into this is your core feature is the one which will get used by
Right.
80% of the students. Like,
Right.
just apply the Pareto principle here.
Right.
80% of the users will use 20% or the top two features,
Right.
arguably the top feature of your product. Rest 20% might use like other long tail of features. So you need to be very calculative about it.
Right.
Like, we expected, at while all the AI LLM revolution had just started in 2023, and we were also being asked that what are you doing in AI. We tried to figure out a lot what makes logical sense, and we did a bunch of things like, if you are a student who's watching a video of a question or a solution, we would help you ask follow-up questions on that.
Yeah.
The adoption of this feature was less than 1%,
Right.
while it was available to everyone.
Right.
So I think like you need to be like super calculative. The next big shiny thing might not
Right.
get as many users who adopt. So
Right.
like
So I
focus.
think being focused on the what really add value to the user,
Right.
like potentially having lesser features is better than just creating everything that could be created.
Right. And like the thing is, like, features accumulate over
Right.
time, so you need to be
Right.
very thoughtful about what to kill.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there is another layer that is now in the recent times with the massive progress in the AI tooling that is coming around, right? And in a way, what you are building at Sherlocks is also in a way AI tool to make tech teams much more productive.
Right.
Now building new features is also now is much easier.
Right.
Now, like I can have 10 ideas that could be added to an app or a platform. And potentially I can just give it to cloud code, and at least a V0 of the feature it could build in maybe half an hour.
Right.
Right. During your time at Doubtnut and now even at Sherlock, what is your way to keep that in check? That, as they call AI slop, right? That while as writing code becomes easier, it also increases the slop a lot.
Right.
A lot of features, lot of code, but it is not really adding value to the user.
Right.
So as an engineering leader, what is your strategy to keep that in check?
So
it is a little counter to, right? Because now engineers and product managers, they can come up with that in 1 month we can release 20 things.
Yeah.
But releasing them itself might be, detrimental to the business and the user value.
Absolutely. And I think like some of the frameworks or guardrails that can help is at a given point of time, you can have only these features, or for any feature that is released, you need to take a call within a specified timeline that whether to keep it or remove it.
Right.
And there has to be like
so very
strong
metric driven
justification.
that either it has to move this needle or it gets killed.
Absolutely.
Right. So grow or die.
Exactly.
So for each feature there has to be a grow or die.
Exactly.
Makes sense. No, I think that's pretty objective, because then it's not opinion.
Yeah.
But earn your right to survive for every feature.
Exactly.
Right. Makes sense. Would love to maybe now also talk about Sherlocks.ai a bit, right? I think there has been despite a lot of doubts that people kept raising on AI, and it continues even today. But I think it's pretty established that AI can increase productivity of experts in multiple subdomains, right?
Right.
I think the example of code generative tools like, let's say, Cursor, Windsurf, Claude Code, pretty evident. People use it heavily, despite all the argument that some of it might not be as productive, and you are trying to build Sherlocks.ai to help SREs, right, that
Right.
investigate if something went wrong in a platform, what went wrong, help them fix it faster.
Right.
Right. Now, one argument might also be the argument of the GPT wrappers.
Right.
I remember Varun, who is co-founder of Windsurf, Codium. Like last when I chatting with him saying the same thing, that people said that Windsurf is just a wrapper. But this wrapper is creating so much value, and it is such a thick wrapper
Yeah.
that it's still worthwhile to build it because of the value and impact it creates, and it's like multi-billion value organization today.
Yeah.
At Sherlock, as a layman, at surface I might say that I can just dump all my logs to an LLM,
Yeah.
and it can give me some answers.
Right.
What are the layers that you are building at Sherlock, and like what doesn't work if I just dump all my logs to an LLM? What would fail, and how is Sherlock solving that?
Right. So actually, let me start with a story that we started with when we were just conceptualizing or building the V1 of Sherlock's. Like in a week, we were able to build something interesting. Like it was able to do something around debugging.
Uh-huh.
And our assumption was that let's put more data in it, let's do more integrations, and
Right.
it will start giving good answers.
Right.
That failed flat.
Right.
And that is when we realized that while it was intuitive that LLMs hallucinate, the more context does not mean better
Right.
results.
Right.
But we saw it the first hand, and then that's where we spent a lot of effort figuring out how to give it the right context, how to create memories which are useful for the for debugging.
Right.
How to manage those memories, how to be more accurate, because when you ask LLM, hey, I'm seeing this particular alert, what could be wrong, LLM will come with 100 reasons,
Right.
which all of them would be quite possible.
Right.
So figuring out what would be the most possible things given a particular infrastructure or context, and
Right.
planning the whole execution, storing the right amount of information, and giving just the right amount of information to the LLM. You can't do everything with LLM. Like
Right.
you can't analyze time series data with LLM. It's such a huge context, and it will
Right.
just start hallucinating even
Right.
more.
Right.
So
Right.
those are that is the thickness of the wrapper that
And
we
one
are.
technical challenge that I also see with a platform like Sherlocks.ai, that an LLM that you might be using in the backend, it could be, let's say, a Cloud API or a OpenAI API. Most likely that model would have been trained on, say, SRE related data as well, right? But in context of SRE, the risk of hallucination is too high.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, for example, like if I take a specific example, let's say in my company, the architecture is that there's a load balancer, there are a bunch of application servers behind that, and let's say we use an election mechanism to detect field servers and automatically remove them, or let's say, like maybe just one example. Now, the LLM might have gotten trained on an architecture which was different from this.
Right.
Right. And it lost the context that it started recommending something which was from some different architecture the LLM was trained on in some different context.
Yeah.
How would you make sure that that is impossible?
So, and that is the core innovation that we have done while building Sherlock's. The way we do it is we create a bunch of infrastructures, and we ask LLMs to create chaos in those infrastructures. Using that chaos and whatever we observe, and then our agents try to debug what is happening, and they recommend fixes.
Got it.
And because we know the ground truth, what was the chaos introduced, we are able to compare what
So
was
in
the
a way,
chaos.
you have created your own virtual environments
Yes.
in which you train your agent first.
Correct.
Right? And in a way, it is reinforcement learning.
It is.
Not with human feedback, but because these are simulated environments where the ground truth.
Correct.
Got it.
And that's what helps us create, if you see this, these are the most plausible reasons behind this failure, versus asking an LLM that if you see this, LLM will come up with 100 different reasons. Most of them might be relevant.
Right. So are you training, like, do you use a let's say intelligence API like ChatGPT or Claude, or do you think that eventually you might have to train your own models which are super specialized trained on this?
Yeah, we get this. We get asked a lot around this, and
Yeah,
our opinion is that LLMs are evolving very rapidly.
yeah,
What you might be fine tuning or training on right now might just get obsolete with the next release
right,
of any foundational model.
right.
So we are not getting into that territory.
Hmm.
We believe it's a what we need to do is we need to be ahead of LLMs in doing this particular job.
Right.
That's what we are
But you
building
basically
for.
fundamentally you do not need to. So no, but see, frontier model. Of course, you will always use a frontier model. I don't think you or most others need to build a frontier model from
Right.
scratch, right? But there could be two approaches there. One could be that you pick up something like, let's say, Llama, or an open source frontier model,
Hmm.
and then do RLHF or something on that to make sure that it is pretty well custom trained in your problem space.
Right.
The other could be that you use RAG or kind of custom prompts,
Right.
system prompts, etc., and
Right.
just use a publicly hosted OpenAI model.
Right.
Between these two approaches, have you guys discovered that what leads to better results?
Yeah. So we have done a bunch of experiments
Hmm.
around this, and the LLM has a little role to play. Honestly, that we have seen. It's a lot about what the pipelines are and how do you figure out various steps in that pipeline and give the right data to the LLMs.
Understood.
Of course, some LLMs are better at generating hypotheses versus
Mhm.
the other LLMs.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
and hence eventually it boils down to a lot around evals that
Right.
we have.
Right.
So
So that was the next question I wanted to get to, because in this domain, evals will also become very important, right?
yeah,
So unlike world of deterministic software where we can just have a set of test cases,
yeah,
as long as those test cases are passing, we know that the system is working well. In the domain of, let's say, discovering uh, challenges in a SRE environment, I'm not sure that there are enough cutting edge evals that even exist today.
hmm,
So some of the evals your team or other companies working in the same domain will have to define.
exactly.
So what is your approach on defining evals for this specific domain of SRE, AI for SRE?
Right, and it's super complicated. Like
It is, yeah.
especially creating
It is
evals.
something on which a bunch of research papers can come out.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly, and yeah, I won't say so much about it right now, but
yeah,
this is some an area where we are actively working on.
right,
And the fundamental idea is that if you are building an AI company, however thin or thick wrapper you are
yeah,
making on top of foundational models, if you are not building evals,
right, evals, yeah,
drop everything else and start building evals.
right,
That is the fundamental belief.
right, right, right. So far in your work, so far, and as much you can share, uh, what is in a layman terms, like let's say a platform like Sherlock, what kind of evals would give you confidence that this is working well or not working so well?
So basically, as I said, right, like we have these systems where we can simulate different failures and then observe what is going on. The
Right.
challenge with evals in an SRE world is that it's not just the input and output.
Mhm.
With the input, there are 100 other inputs that you need to look at. What were
Right.
the metrics, logs, traces at
Right.
that point of time,
Right.
and use all of those. So the evals themselves become fairly complicated, fairly vast, is the
Right.
challenge there.
Right. 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 No, very clear. I think I'll also then jump on to the domain of safety, right? Now, I think historically in the AI race, the safety has been a little bit of, the activist kind of thinking but now in this context, when we look at the AI safety becomes a very real business need,
Right.
right? Because now slowly as we are using AI into systems which are extremely critical, right? Now let's say a platform like Sherlock's, it if it ends up giving a wrong advice to SRE, and if the SRE acts on it, the consequences could be massive,
Absolutely.
right? So how you and your team are thinking about the AI safety,
Right.
that like for example, for a platform, if I were to, let's say, consider implementing such a platform, I would say, like if there are 10% cases where there is, say, 70-30 probability that the response might be right or wrong, I would say I'm okay with a false negative, that it says that I don't know, rather than telling something when it has only 90% confidence.
Right.
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 So how are you guys thinking about AI safety? Because SRE is extremely critical, domain to work in. Unlike, for example, development, right?
Yeah.
I also think a development, something is getting built before it gets into real world. So many people are going to look at it.
There's always a human in the
There's
loop
always a
before
human in the loop,
something
right?
goes live.
And even in SRE, there might be human in the loop, but it is much closer to the real user than development. Because
Right.
here the decision could impact my live systems immediately.
Correct.
While in case of a developer, it's still few cycles before it goes to production.
Absolutely.
Right. So how do you all think about the safety?
Right. So this is something. So there are two axes to look at it. One is the coverage, and second is the accuracy.
Right.
For us, accuracy axis is the most important one.
Right.
And the way we do it is, first of all, as we are building more and more, we are erring on the side of caution. That if we are not certain about something, and certainty comes from correlations and causation analysis. If we are not certain about something, we'll call it out that this is the likely cause, but we might need to check these 5 other things.
Right.
And then we leave it to the user, and for some time I think it'll go like that, unless after a fair amount of time, I don't know, in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, we'll be at a point where we have seen enough examples of accuracy, where we'll be able to categorize it very well, that in this case we are quite certain that this is the way, and this is, in this case, we are not so certain that this is the cause.
Right. So basically, your approach right now is that, of course, like any new recommendation that is being generated, it will always be probabilistic.
Right.
But one is that add abundantly disclaimers to the user.
Right.
That these are the areas that you might want to cross verify before you act on it.
Right.
And secondly, of course, that if it is below a certain threshold of conviction, then you just say that I don't know.
Correct. And the advantage we have is, because for everything that we say or do, we have supporting data which is coming from facts, from logs, metrics, and traces, which helps us figure out this confidence better than something subjective. No,
but if I zoom out a little bit to the global, space of LLMs, generic LLMs, right, like ChatGPT, one problem that exists is that our AI, unlike humans, never says I don't know.
Yeah.
Because of the reward mechanism that it always try to say that I know this is it.
Right.
This is the answer, even if the answer is not so accurate.
Yeah.
And while in a chat GPT conversation where I might be just maybe asking about which restaurant I should eat at, we're sure even if it says the restaurant to be best and it is less than best, it's okay.
Yeah.
But in these high stake environments, I think refining that where it says I don't know more often would be an important part of designing it in the right way. But the base LLMs, in a way, currently at least, don't do that.
Absolutely. And we are also at the same time hoping that LLMs will start doing that going ahead. Like there has been recent interest in this and some papers which have been published. It's an active area of research. It'll definitely help across the community, across builders in AI to be more accurate.
In a way, you are optimistic that even the foundational LLM layer itself would address it to quite an extent. Apart, like in addition to that, of course, in your own layer, you would try to build mechanisms to prevent.
Correct.
Just saying that I know when you don't know.
Yeah.
Fair. Makes sense. I think one more area that I would want to, given you are working on a frontier AI application space so closely, I think there, of course, over last few years, everyone is talking about AI, right? There is a fair conviction that it can massively increase productivity in multiple spaces. And of course, in any hype cycle, there is a lot of vaporware as well.
Yeah.
Right? What is your framework to in a way, even for your own execution, choose that where there is real value creation that's gonna compound year over year, versus what are the areas which might not be worth going much into and might be just hype.
Yeah, I think it boils down to a very initial discussion that was going around when AI was writing or LLMs were writing PRDs. Everyone was starting questioning that what will be the role of product managers. But the role of product managers is not writing PRDs. That's just a part of it.
Yeah.
The problem identification is the major role of product managers, which still exists, and same applies to the idea of doing something with LLMs or building AI applications. That what you're doing with the AI application, is that solving a real problem, and that does not change. LLM, no LLM, the
Right.
problem still stays the same.
Right.
That are you solving a real problem?
Right.
So
No, so I think it's something that has remained consistent over many decades, right?
exactly.
That if there is a real problem being solved, and if you manage to solve it using AI,
Yeah.
then higher likelihood that it could build. But using AI just for the sake of it, in your recent time, if you can, give few examples of uh, anything that's being built, but you consider it to be AI hype than real value.
Nothing specifically comes to mind right
I can
away.
give you nudge of one. You talked about like AI features in Doubtnut that were barely used.
Yeah, I mean, see, like some of the things, for example, the GPT released demos by Khan Academy that we have seen.
Right.
Absolutely lovely platform. I respect Khan Academy for
Right.
everything they have done. But like the features that have been demoed there, they seem like toy features. At least as of now. While the holy grail of AI in education is personalized education for a student, like one-on-one teacher-student relationship, what has been demoed so far and it sounds good,
Right.
but it's not.
And actually, very candidly, so far I have not even heard that it has led to a meaningful needle movement into learning outcomes or adherence.
Right, right.
So it's great to use, but I think I'm fairly confident that it might happen eventually.
Yes.
That we might figure out that how to achieve that. But yes, of course, just throwing AI on a tool does not mean that it's going to lead.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did at Doubtnut for the follow-up Q&A
Right.
part, but it just did not move the needle. I think
Right.
what you said is right. Moving the needle is what matters. It
Right.
might be the swankiest AI feature that you release.
Right. Makes sense. Now let's talk a little bit about you have you studied at IIT Bombay. You have worked in India for long. Now you're spending quite some time in SF and Bay Area as well. In terms of the technological culture uh, across different geos and the spaces that you have explored, uh, what's your opinion that what is unique about Indian tech culture which makes it powerful, and what are things about our Indian tech culture that you want to be better?
Yeah. Call me a pessimist, but I generally focus on what can be improved
Sure, no, of course,
versus.
that's the path to get better. So yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think fundamentally what I've seen is when you talk to people in Bay Area, and I've not seen other parts of US, but talking about the Bay Area specifically, people, first difference that you see is professionalism. Like when someone talks about a timeline, they are serious about the timeline. They are not just kidding around that approximately it will happen by this time. They are fairly confident about it, and the idea of asking questions for clarification or opposing thoughts, that is something which is ingrained in that culture, which I don't see so much in India. Now it is not just uh, someone who's it's a manager problem as well. Like if someone comes to you and asks you that why are we doing this, would you take it personally, or would you try to like objectively figure that out and explain? And if it does not hold true, it's fine, you can move your opinion as a manager as well. That is something which I saw very different in the Bay Area. The other thing that I saw very differently is how efficient people are at work. They might be in office only from like 9 to 6.
Mhm.
But when they are in office 9 to 6, they are in office. They are doing
Mhm.
only, they're focusing only on the work, and
Mhm.
that's all. They even have lunches on their desk itself. No
Right.
one is going out for cigarette breaks or
Yeah.
whatever, which
Yeah.
I think, I mean, at least in my experience, everywhere in India, we see people are going out 5 times a day, 15 minutes break.
Right.
That just makes it, more
And I
than an
think
hour.
in West generally people also have a clear boundary between their professional life and personal life.
Right.
Right. So in India often that gets blurred. That instead
Yeah.
of 10 hours in the office, we might spend 16 hours in office,
Yeah.
but probably only works 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're super efficient at work,
Yeah.
and that reflects in everything that they do in terms of excellence as well.
Mhm.
When they are thinking about something deep, they are really focusing on how
Right.
to solve the problem, and in time. They're serious about that.
Right. Right. No, makes sense. Makes sense. On that depth, technical depth, right? Even if we look at, for example, like India has the total number of engineers that we have is at par with any global economy. Like
Yeah.
number of engineers, India and US is pretty much comparable, right? But and similarly, also even when in Bay Area, when we see a lot of people who are doing cutting edge research, even in AI or leading large teams, a lot of them are Indians,
Right.
right? However, we see little of that innovation coming from India.
Hmm.
In your opinion, what's the reason for that?
So one call it brain drain, or
Sure,
the
fair,
high
yeah.
agency people who are
End up migrating.
exactly,
Correct. So
and
it's just that, like, our top 0.1% is already there.
exactly,
Yeah.
and they're there because they took the courage and the
Fair,
risk
of
to
course,
go
of
there,
course.
spend that much,
100%.
get
All
the
due credits. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%.
education.
Right.
So I
So
think,
it's, I think, a little bit of auto filtration.
yeah,
The issue of
exactly.
brain drain. Fair,
It's,
very
it's
reasonable.
it's a selection
Right.
bias
But at the same
automatically.
time, I would also argue that it's not that all of our top brain just migrated,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah.
The
So
other
apart from brain drain, what else do you think?
The other
Is
is,
there?
I think, the sort of ideas that culturally get discussed. And so, like, just as an example, right? I've been to a bunch of hackathons in the Bay Area, and you would hear all sorts of weird things being discussed. Like, in one of the hackathons, a girl was talking about, "Hey, I'm fed up of this dating game. Like, I have to talk to 20 guys, and then it's the same conversation, only to realize that none of them are interesting to me. What if I can have my agent and the guys can have their agent, and they can
Yeah.
talk to each other and just
Yeah.
surface the interesting ones?"
Yeah.
So a lot of weird, out of the whack
And even if it's
ideas.
outrageous, but you just want to experiment.
Exactly, they get
Yeah.
discussed, and like, even if 100 of them get discussed, maybe 5 of them would be
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
and there's enough risk capital there to take
Right.
bets on those 5
Right.
ideas.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that makes a huge difference.
Right. Right. Makes sense. When it comes to technical depth, right? What is your observation in the sense of technical depth of talent that's available in India versus in Bay Area?
uh, I think definitely there's a lot more technical depth on an average
Mhm.
in the Bay Area, as much as I have seen. Part of it has to do with the fact that when they are focusing on something, they are focusing on that in a very deep way.
Mhm.
It's not like, let's say in India, we might end up a lot of times doing that front end, back end, data, DevOps. One person would do all of those things because we fundamentally do not. While we are an outsourcing country, like
Right.
all US outsources work
Right.
to us, we ourselves don't believe in outsourcing.
Right.
So we end up doing a lot of things that we should not have done.
Mhm.
We should have focused on making our beer
Mhm.
taste better,
Mhm.
but we are focusing on all the ancillary things
Mhm.
around it.
Mhm.
So that takes away from the depth. That increases the breadth a lot,
Yeah.
but that takes away from the depth.
Got it. Got it. Now, then connecting it back to let's say a young graduate or someone who's studying in college, or a young engineer. This is a point that we started with in the very beginning of breadth versus depth, right?
Right.
Uh, what, like, if you can go back to say 2011 or 2012 when you were about to graduate,
Yeah.
what would you have done differently with, like, if you can go back with all the experiences and the learnings that you have
Yeah.
had?
So as a non-CS graduate,
Mhm.
see, in anyone who's graduating from computer science, might at least have the subjects. If
Mhm.
even if they are studying or not,
Sure,
that's another
sure,
thing.
sure.
But they would still have the subjects for fundamental
Mhm.
knowledge. Getting that knowledge is super important. Like being good with that knowledge. Like one is just to clear exams, but other is to really understand what is going on.
Right.
So and for me as a non-CS graduate, the way to do that is just by reading books around it. See, the difference between reading a book and a blog or or some other
Mhm.
watching a video
Mhm.
is that books keep on iterating the same point over and over again.
It's passive consumption, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it helps you. You can like go back, read the same line over and over again 10 times
Yeah.
until it gets clear in your head.
Mhm.
That makes books the best way to learn, in
Very
my
interesting.
opinion.
Very
And
interesting.
then you can club it with all the chat gpts of the world and just
So your opinion is that reading a knowledge dense book is much more impactful than, let's say, watching a video. Is it so?
absolutely
Mhm.
100%,
Interesting.
or a blog or whatever. And
Mhm.
like there are some
It's a
I mean
very counter. It's not common for people to say that, because nowadays most people say that just watch tutorials.
yeah, yeah.
Very
And I
interesting.
think there's also
Just one kind of argument I would give is that in technology particularly, applied learning always is much more important, right? How do you suggest people to, let's say, even when reading from books, how to make sure that it's always very applied and you're not just reading about it but you're also applying it into something real?
yeah, fair point. I think both of them have to be like separate efforts.
Mhm.
You need to do both,
Mhm.
applied as well as the theoretical knowledge.
Mhm.
Theoretical knowledge is important when you need to make decisions while you are applying things or building things.
Right.
That's where you can't say that, I need to build something today and just figure out 10 different ways to build that thing today.
Right.
You need
Right.
to have a lot of context, a lot of knowledge, background before you can take the right decisions.
Right. No, I do have a thesis that in future, probably all the books should become, in Harry Potter there were these speaking books, right? So eventually with LLMs probably there should be speaking books
Yeah,
that each book come with a mobile app or something,
yeah,
and
yeah.
with which you can just interact with it,
Or
that whatever.
maybe like
Yeah.
devices like the meta glasses where
Yeah.
you're looking at a book and you
And right
can.
there you see the real example simulations, you can
Yeah,
interact with it.
that would be so cool.
I hope for that. And maybe it's a fantastic startup idea for someone to build.
Yes.
Yeah. Super. No, I hope that someone picks up this idea, and maybe that could be a fantastic startup in itself. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. It was a fantastic conversation.
Thanks a
All the
lot for
best
having me
with
over.
Sherlocks AI. I look forward to hopefully use it soon as well and see it grow massively.
Thanks a lot. Thanks
Super.
for having me over.
Thank you.